East Forest. Welcome to the How Humans Work podcast.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm really glad to have you here. I'm very moved by your work. You don't know this, but I'm in the healing arts, so your music is oftentimes the soundtrack for my body work and acupuncture sessions for people, and it's you do really beautiful things, and so I thank you for that.
Right on.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's good. And I wanted to talk a little bit to start with about Esalen, actually. I know you were just there, and I want to hear a little bit about what is some of the work you do there at Esalen and how that builds cohesion in society, if you would.
Well, I've been facilitating at Esalen. I think it's like 2017 maybe. And I've been doing it with my wife, Rada. And so we've iterated up a long weekend retreat that seems to be a nice rhythm and a pretty potent container for folks. And it's all around how we can use music as a tool to help us transform, and hopefully in a very practical sense, because music's just like everywhere in our lives. So it's like, maybe how can we use that more consciously and up against all the challenges that we face. So we do a variety of experiences there, from a more ceremonial music experience, but also concerts, dance parties, yoga, breath work, different exercises with people and partners. And of course, the landscape there is, for those who don't know, it's in Big Sur, California. It has hot springs. It's in this very remote area of Big Sur, California that's really beautiful. You just never escape the ocean. And it's this overwhelming presence and power that I think in itself is maybe the largest healing entity there. So more and more, the more we're in our digital lives, coming together is important and powerful, and surprise, surprise, really healing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful. And for you, what happens in that healing spirit? You get near the ocean. What's some of the teachings you're walking with out of that from this week of bringing music and community together in such a space?
I think we realize that we're all going through stuff, and we're all pretty similar. We're not very different in the challenges that we go through. It might be unique moments in each of our lives, but it's like there's this similarity, of course, to the human experience. It's hard to really remember that until you witness other people being vulnerable, and that we're all doing our best and working through it. And so it also, when you offer your attention and witness to someone going through something, you're supporting them. And by doing that, actually, you feel better because you feel useful, and you're starting to engender the feelings that you're projecting and expressing towards them, of warmth or love, and now you start to feel that. And so it's just a kind of that co-regulation type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I get that. That's really well said. And also this experience, not just with retreats or community or our vulnerabilities, that it's like once we're on the inside, we can remember, and it's harder to know when we're on the outside of those moments. And then when we set that time aside and you get onto the inside of it and see it, for me, my experience, it makes sense once I'm with it. And it's harder to remember when I'm on the outside of it, or it makes less sense.
And just having time, inevitably just getting away from your habits and routines, and even just a bit of a digital detox. By the morning after the first night, everyone's a little tired and frayed. And then the next day, you just start to drop in more. And I think in some ways, it's a natural process going on retreat, just a way of saying, connecting back to what you are and what is, as opposed to like putting on all these different layers. You're really stripping things away. So, I mean, we were talking about Spirit Rock also in California before we started. And, they do a lot of Vipassana meditations there. So that's like maybe the most extreme version of that, where you're really stripping everything away until there's nothing left. But that's just another method. And the things we do at Esalen, while edging, hopefully, into some real truths and emotional, vulnerable spaces for people, it's also pretty blissful. And it's like a warm, cozy I mean, there's literally warm water there to get into anytime you want. So
Yeah. I was thinking about this show and this conversation, and one of my feelings about what you're doing is there's a laboratory that you're in, that you're experimenting with music and ceremony in novel ways. And I think maybe that's best exemplified by your recent documentary, Music for Mushrooms. I'd like to talk a little bit about that because I watched that this year and I was incredibly moved, not just by the power of music, because I know the power of your music as a healing force, like I said at the outset, when I'm in my clinic and I'm working with people. But the other thing is that really moved me about that documentary, and maybe you can illuminate this, was the clips that you included of people telling their stories. And I've been in the healing arts for a long time, and I thought this is the best representation of soul struggle and honesty and authenticity and longing that I've ever seen on a screen. It was like that aspect to the documentary was just such a deep affirmation. I think your team did a really fabulous job catching the essence of what it feels like to be in the soul journey and struggle.
that's good to know. So the Music for Mushrooms film, I don't know when this comes out, but we are releasing it on YouTube for a limited time. So we want people to see it. We want to inspire people. And what I was trying to inspire people into was a recognition that they hopefully see themselves in the film somewhere. And that's why we shared so many other people's stories. I learned a lot about filmmaking, and I knew that I learned that I had to have some sort of backbone narratively for the film itself. So for better or worse, that became me going through this particular story and struggling with that. But beyond that, that's just a vehicle so I could talk to and show other people's stories, and we can recognize like our cross currents there, our similarities. And that's the goal, so that we can then recognize that, hey, you're not alone, and maybe you pull some sort of bit from those people's shares about what may help you, and that inner work, that stuff we do in the privacy of our hearts, that really matters. Yeah, not only does it matter, it's like that's kind of the ground level. That is the ground level of change and the thing that is becoming in the world, that it's, pitted up against this massive structure that we've constructed that is collapsing and is clearly not sustainable on so many levels. And so we have to transform it. And it is happening because it's like breaking down simultaneously, but it requires a lot of us. And primarily that we can resource within a kind of inner fortitude and clarity about what it means to be conscious and alive without just feeling like a victim that's just bouncing around and reacting, that we feel more endogenous in our choices and actions, and maybe a sense of power. And that power comes from hopefully a sense of peace or stableness of something that is just who you are, that doesn't change or go away. And so when you can act and connect to that and act from it, I mean, the world's a better place, but hopefully you're in a better place.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. So the mission or the vision of the story of the film is to help people access that sense of resource.
It's to inspire them and remind them. I mean, that's what all art is in a lot of ways, I think. But very directly, yes, that is the film is meant for social change. It's a social impact film in that regard. But you got to tell good stories. It has to be entertaining to be worth anyone's time these days, right? So we worked super hard on it having the right pacing and timing and being like fun to watch for anyone. You should be able to watch that film and know nothing about me or the subject or even care about it walking in and be like, I was engaged with just like the movie and the narrative story.
Yeah. And how do you feel you did with that?
I feel pretty good. I mean, what I realized quickly was how hard it is to make a movie. Like I majored in film in school, and I was a photographer. It was my day job in my 20s, and I was an actor in my 20s. So I sort of like had these different constituent parts of
Huh?
movie making. And a long, long time ago, that's what I wanted to do. But I jettisoned that because I thought it was too collaborative. Like it was just too many people and too many cooks in the kitchen in a way.
Yeah.
But coincidentally, like that was the thing I enjoyed the most about making it, was working with a lot of different people. It was really fun, and especially when you get to work with really talented people, like a great editor, or anything like a great colorist, or story consultants, or people shooting the film with me. And so that was fun, and it was fun to get to like dive into these elements of my own background and personality that like I got to just play with them in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
I never kind of expected that to come back full circle like that in my life.
Right. So not the skill set, but also just your personal healing journey that you were talking about through the film as well. So you both got to touch into this place of what you thought you were going to do with your life, but also you were working with your own trauma and healing journey at the same time, and kind of in a public way. And I'm kind of curious what you had to do with inside yourself to get comfortable with that, if that was a process.
Well, I think I was just beat down over it. It took 3 years to make it. And at first, I didn't know what I was doing. And then we got funding privately from some wonderful backers. And then I realized that, there's some serious pressure. Like, I have to make this fully and finish it. And then I needed help. And once I got help, professionals, I quickly realized then, like, I don't have a choice. Like, first off, I was looking for a director for a long time, and we never really landed on anyone who became it. And so I sort of became the director by default, and eventually took the reins fully. But I just learned, I was so focused on what makes this a good movie or what makes the story work. And that was like a different brain you put on, that I was very objective about it. And so I very quickly was like, whatever it takes. So, okay, do we have any footage where like I look really bad or I'm really struggling? Like we need more of that, because if I don't have that, no one will care about me. If they don't care about me, nobody cares about the movie. And you have to either be self-deprecating or humorous. There's only two ways to make it work. You certainly can't be figuring things out and no answers. And you have to, so you got to be like, you got to kind of have to throw yourself under the bus a little bit. And I had no problem with that. But I'll tell you, when it came out and I was sitting in the theater, we did a theatrical run, and I'm sitting there with a bunch of people, that's when it hit me. And I was like, geez, wait a minute. That's my bedroom, and I'm kind of I'm a bit anxious right now on screen, and I don't look great. And but I knew that helped. Like when we watch anything, we want to see something that feels authentic.
Yeah.
And we want to see kind of ourselves, and we see ourselves through struggle and triumph and stuff.
Yeah. Good. No, I feel that. And I think that all comes through. I'd like to deepen into this idea of where music and mushrooms meet, right? Because that's the title. And it's when my wife, she went and saw one of the theatrical runs. She said, this film was amazing. This guy East Forest, Mm-hmm. And I didn't know that I knew you musically already, and so we put it together. But this idea of like, what is music for mushrooms, and what's that title mean as a relationship?
The title came out of an album that came out in 2019 called Music for Mushrooms. And that happened because I started this project in 2008 very organically, playing music for underground mushroom ceremonies. And the music developed out of that. It was very purpose-driven. And back then it was more dangerous and certainly not very cool to talk about psychedelics, or there wasn't much of a public forum for this. There weren't podcasts talking about it and so forth. So I released music, but I didn't explicitly say what it was for, how we did it. And fast forward to 2018, I thought I should. I just felt this hit, like I think I really need to do that, and not just release a portion of the ceremony like I did before, because I would record and improvise in these ceremonies live. So I thought we should just release the whole thing. So it was 5 hours, and I wanted the title to go beyond any ambiguity. So it's called Music for Mushrooms: A Soundtrack for the Psychedelic Practitioner, Volume 1. And that was a bit tongue in cheek, but also quite literal. And I was not sure how that would land. I didn't know if you could release 5-hour albums at the time on Spotify and so forth. So I just uploaded it and tried it, and it came out. And it was the same year the Ram Dass album came out. And Michael Pollan's book, his first book, How to Change Your Mind, came out, I think, 2 weeks later. And everyone thought that was sort of intentional. And I'm like, I, of course, had no idea that Michael Pollan's book was coming out. I think these sort of winds and things can collide in the collective consciousness. So anyway, fast forward a few years, and I was thinking about ways. I'm always interested in how do I meet more people, especially where they're at. It's like different doorways to walk through. And music by far is a big one for me. But we were talking about retreats. I do some retreats. I have a podcast. I had been working on a book, and COVID kind of gobbled that thing up and spit it out. And so I shifted into this idea of a documentary. And frankly, it was just very naive. I did not know what I was getting into. And so I thought, no big deal. Like, we'll just kind of start piecing one together. Because I thought, and I think it's still true, that you have the potential to reach quite a lot of people through stories on screen, so to speak, because we're all watching things. And there's also a lot out there, and a lot of it's short form content. But I was really into this idea of making a complete narrative feature film. So it's just one of those things, man, where like, I think the only reason it happened is because I did not know what I was doing or what I was getting into. But once I got into it, I'm like a dog with a bone. I'm like, we're finishing this. So
Appreciate that. That's wonderful. I'm so glad you did. And I highly encourage people to not just listen to the music, but check out the documentary as well. This idea of music for mushrooms, it's almost like, are you speaking back to the mushrooms with your music? And are you speaking to the people who are having the mushroom experience? Because I feel in your creative flow, there's a conversation happening with what you express that has many layers that are so fascinating and interesting and moving. So, is there a difference there?
I think when you improvise music, in some ways, all music starts as a form of improvisation. It has to come from the ether. And it feels like a conversation. It feels like I'm listening and just picking up on things, and it's coming through, as opposed to any clear authorship on my part. But of course, it's coming through the mechanism of my body and my fingers and my attention. And so in that way, it does feel like a conversation. It's kind of a call and response in a way. And it's also very mysterious. Creativity is something that feels very sacred and fundamental to the human experience. And it also feels really confounding and frustrating at times. It's just so easy to stunt it or cloud it. And like, it's so easy. And it also is not something that you just turn a faucet and it's on and it stays on. It's like surfing. And so the long form ceremony format has just been a very interesting creative landscape for me. It's not the only way that I create music, or so forth, but it's one particular space that's not only unique, but because I just did it for so many years, it allowed for a very kind of like palette to work with, which is you have a lot of time and people are giving you in that space their full attention in a very amplified way. And that gives me the ability to work in subtlety and nuance and minimalism that can translate outside of that space into those recordings that I think is a really interesting musical flavor or texture where sometimes less is more and the minimalism of it. But more than anything, just the long form nature of it is a kind of kryptonite to everything else today.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But the long form and the psychedelic states and the ears that go into that, the ears that are on the other side of that process, both the inner ear of what you're sensing and feeling, but where people are at and what their receptivity place, their amplified receptivity place. What's it like for you? Like, how do you? I'm thinking about me, like when I feel somebody's body or when I feel somebody's neck. I know that I'm not just touching their neck and they're not just aware of it, but I also need to be aware that I'm in a relationship with, that they know I'm touching their neck. And if I do that in a way that both is attuned to the tissue and attuned to their experience of me being with their tissue, right, or whatever is there, that little knot, that the ceremony of the healing process becomes richer. Yeah. So I want to like invite a little bit more of for you to articulate that interior watching, knowing, creative process.
Well, in that space, that particular space, it's highly intentional and highly structured. But I'm, of course, not touching anyone physically. So it's this step removed where it's just all energetic. And especially if there's a group, most definitely you can sense something happening with a single person if it's sort of obvious, like they're moving, they're struggling or they're moving around. But you definitely feel the vibe of the group. I mean, this happens in concerts, when I'm not in the psilocybin space overtly, like just when I'm in any space as a performer, I think you can just sense when there's a coherence or cohesion in the room. And that totally feeds my inner process. It just gives you a sense of like a license to open up a bit or take some risks or express yourself with a little more flair, which is beautiful. It's like more play. It gives you freedom, just it gives more confidence to dig in and lean in a bit more. And those are the kind of flow states I think we all want. I think people don't recognize in any audience situation how they co-create that with the performer, because it's really, you don't notice it necessarily out of the gate when you're standing in the audience, but it's like your participation energetically is like how everything comes together.
The intelligence of the mushroom and it's what it knows, and how much is that part of the co-creative interaction for you?
Well, I certainly ask for its support, and I ask for it to speak through me. But it's really more of like a humbling. I don't. I don't. A lot of times, I'm not as aware of the fullness of what's going on until later. Like if I record it, and if I listen to these recordings, sometimes I can notice that there's a process that was going on in my own mind that was not at all what was going on. And then when I witness it later, I can hear what's coming through. And I was actually not aware of it. I was just sort of I'm in my process doing the thing. And then you really can feel like a vehicle in that sense.
That's beautiful.
But it can go the other way where you're like wrapped up in your own thing and you're blocking, in a sense, what wanted to come through. And that's cool too. Like the surfing thing, like it always goes in ebbs and flows, always. It's never just like, it's very human in that way. And I think that's what life is like.
Yeah.
Where we're opening and closing, we're forgetting, we're remembering. And
Yeah.
I feel like that motion is not just okay, it's the point.
Yeah. Great. And the impact of that ceremonial space, the music, the context, and also the film that's basically telling that story of music and the psychedelic state as an access point. Let's go towards the impact. I suggest this idea that I feel like there's a laboratory that your life is, in a way. Forgive the metaphor if it doesn't work, but just like experimenting with music and states and healing in the communal space. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's what concerts are. I just think the medicine space is super amplified.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a place to just go really deep. And if you think about it, it's just because people are choosing to do that. So it gets back to the power of our choice and how that's actually what makes it happen. So we can kind of do that with anything. But there's just a potentiality, and it's largely exists because of the group decision. And doing things in groups is more vulnerable because you're trusting each other. And it's an individual process, but there's also this layer of how you are participating with the group and how you can support the group energetically. And so I think it's just more interesting.
Mm, yeah. And the impact of the film, what do you know so far?
I mean, it's been great to share it with people. I think it's been surprising on some level, like that it's hard to grab people's attention. That's probably my least favorite thing is trying to like wave a flag and say, "Hey, watch this." But the response has been amazing. I mean, I think we have 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, and we've gotten some nice awards. But those things are great. But more than anything, we work so hard on it, and I just really believe in it. So it's more just like I just want to share it, and so that's why it's in the spirit of the gift right now, because I feel like, all right, holiday time, solstice, so forth. What if we drop all the barriers? And we have more resources for people to dive in if they want to support us. I mean, and I think those are cool too. Like you can see all the interviews in the film, or we have a whole journey toolkit that's like pretty deep amount of materials. But the movie itself, it's also a lot of people tell us that they're like, "Oh, this is the thing I've been waiting to share with like my mom."
Uh-huh.
Or the skeptic, or the
Yeah.
the person who's like kind of curious but they're a little on the fence, and it's
Yeah,
been good for
beautiful.
and we kind of geared it towards that. It was like the people who are into this, they love it, but I wanted to be like, and I tested it with a lot of people who are on the fence or kind of on the outside, because I really wanted to see like, well, how do they respond, and that's why there's almost nothing in the film you could really just argue with as a mechanism to throw it out. Like, it looks, it's very ordinary people, on the face of it, and that was very intentional.
Yeah, good. Good. So that's cool. I appreciate that. And I'm appreciating the the intentionality around that. And I'm thinking about lineage a little bit, and I'm thinking about sources of where you drew inspiration from. And I'm thinking both the ceremonial traditions and maybe Icaros or things that helped foster your sense, or what are other traditions in the ceremonial place that helped you find your way to doing what you're doing?
Well, my firsthand experience in indigenous ceremonies was a big part of teaching me about what I do. My influences and background comes from a lot of different things, but that is a big piece of the pie. So it's hard not to have that influence you. I had some experiences with ayahuasca, with Peruvian traditional shamans, and had some experience in Lakota sweat lodges, both as a participant and a firekeeper. And then I had a little bit of experience in San Pedro, in Machu Picchu, traditional. And then beyond that, you know, those were sort of the big touchstone ones. With mushrooms, interestingly, I didn't have any sort of traditional experience with that because there wasn't anything available around. I mean, you hear about some stuff in Mexico, but that certainly was not on the radar. There's nothing about that online really back in 2008 or before. So you're just kind of, and there wasn't much to read. So I just devoured everything I could from Terrence McKenna and anything I could out there, to be honest, from all the psychedelic elders of the past. But what I picked up, one of the things I picked up in the indigenous work, in these ceremonies themselves, at least is the role of sound and music, was the playfulness of it and the primacy of it, and also the sounds of nature and this that are part of the ceremony, at least all the ones I did.
Yeah.
And so I do a lot of field recording and weave that into, and that's important to me. And I feel like it adds a lot of nuance and more depth.
Yeah, and the layering that you do in your work is so amazing, from the different sounds and the space and the soundscapes, field recordings. The other thing in your work that I really like that's part of the lineage is the voices, particularly the things, the captures of previous talks of Ram Dass or other wisdom elders. And I wonder for you, which of that poetry of soul, like, sticks with you most? I think people can go experience it, but I'm like, which of those things just resonates for you across time?
Well, of course, working with Ram Dass was a big deal in my life. It changed my life profoundly. But so did my first teacher, really, was Court Johnson. And he's in the movie. He's this older guy in the hills of Santa Barbara who's just got a lot figured out for himself. He's a mystic. And I've been weaving with him for 20 some years. And many of the ideas that I talk about are from him. And he's just full of incredible like limericks and sayings that I've been chewing on and still chew on. And so if anything, I just feel like I'm more of his ambassador in a sense. I'm just out there playing with his ideas. But he's such a like trickster energy that there's no like clear, this is the teaching or this is how you learn. It's just like you absorb being with him and you listen. And I've been recording him for a very long time. My first song that I ever did is called 10 Laws, and that's his voice saying the 10 laws. And that's his hunter-gatherer's code of 10. And he has a lot of stuff like that are just really interesting sayings or phrases or methodologies. And so yeah, Court Johnson.
Yeah, and which one of his limericks lives in you strongly?
Many. There's something he says or has said that all choices are valid and everyone graduates. And I remind myself of that one all the time. Or he's got some beautiful things he says in the film. Like he's like, I know I could transform the nation by having anyone stand outside barefoot on the mother surface on the earth, and they just declare, I am soul and I belong here. And so it's just this idea that like it's not wrong, it's right. And we're on campus Earth, and you're here to learn.
Yeah, that's
and
beautiful.
In that sense, the soul is smiling, and we're doing everything we're supposed to do. And I know how people can be like, fuck that. Like, it's a messed up place. And I say, yeah, and it's messed up.
Yeah.
And it's all right. And it's messed up.
Yeah. It really brings in the relationship between the healing and the access to it's all right, or I know I'm on campus Earth, I'm valid, I belong. And we are in a period of time of deep fraying of social fabric and problems and the massive global condition that we're in. And I guess I would just invite to kind of deepen the sense of what is the role of ceremony with that in your eyes, in your experience of the healing process in the face of the challenges that we face?
I think ceremony is just taking a break from our habits and routines, or it's sort of saying that something is extraordinary, and it is because we choose it to be so. So we make things special. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a pretty powerful remedy today when we're running around and we're multitasking. And Court says we have information sickness and totally nails it. Like, so the only person who's going to curate your consciousness is you. Uh-huh. And ceremony ritual in the simplest form, we do it already, but you can make it deeper by just deciding to make it a little deeper. For instance, like for many people, a cup of coffee in the morning, it's a kind of ceremony. If you wanted to, you could not multitask. I mean, I don't even do this, but if you didn't multitask and just sat there for a few minutes with it, wow, you just added a layer of depth. You want to add another layer of depth. What if you free wrote for 5 minutes on paper? Like, you'd probably have some very powerful feelings and emotions and insights. It's very simple, but I also think it's very needed today. You have to create the space to be spoken to. You're being spoken to all the time, but you need the space to listen, to hear. You have to clear away the noise. And you want to do it on your terms as opposed to the universe and life making it happen because you've sort of built up layers and layers of obfuscation And then all of a sudden, like, big things happen. Big things happen. But I'm just saying, it doesn't hurt to just like make space, and it's really beautiful and gentle. And you're just like, the only attitude you need is, I'm listening. I'm listening. I'm not even attaching to what comes through. It's a sense of curiosity, but you receive it. The same you would receive if someone gave you anything, whether you want it or not. You would be gracious. You're like, oh, thank you. Thank you. Just same attitude. It's like, okay, thank you. Thank you. I don't know what this is. I don't know what to do with it. It's a feeling. It's a memory. It's nothing. Just receive it. Okay, we did that. And that's how it is with music and stuff, you know. This morning I was recording some music because it's my job, and I wasn't super psyched with what was coming through, but I had to remind myself it's not about what comes through. It's the fact that I sat down and did it. It's the labor. That's what I'm proud of. Today I did that.
Yeah.
And tomorrow you got to do it again. But these are the things we can do to show up and to kind of open the doorway and to allow this thing that we are to have little pathways to flow through.
That's beautifully said. Appreciate that a lot. Yeah. What else?
Well, I mean, I think it's important for everyone to realize that I intuitively know that things are probably not going to get easier. I think they will most likely get quite a bit harder. And to honor everything we've been through in the near term past. Like, we went through a pandemic. It's easy to just be like, yeah, that happened. But I mean, that happened. Like, it's been crazy. And I do think the change that's coming will be even bigger. So if anything, this is a great time before it gets crazier to sort of like do your calisthenics, you know, find your points of connection, find the methodologies and make them as simple as possible that just you like. Maybe you find that I like going on walks. I don't do it very often, but I like it. It's like, okay, well, at least you now have your little list of the things that work for you that aren't like, oh God, I have to yoga. Like for me, it's like yoga works, but I don't like doing it. It works, but I wouldn't say I enjoy it. So I got to find the things I enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the way I work with that, I really appreciate what you're saying. And I appreciate, you know, because of what you're doing and because of the advocacy for, you know, the psychedelic possibilities, it's also really nice to hear you talk about the cup of coffee and to talk about the daily rhythms and the work, right? Because I think
the simple stuff.
Yeah.
It's what's right in front of us. Another person I've recorded named Lorraine Weiss. She's a musician, has played on some saxophone on some tracks of mine, but she's also a teacher. And that's kind of a lot of her message. There's a song we did it's called Tabula Rasa. It's on the Possible album, and that's her voice. And it's kind of this idea that, you know, it's like your next step is the path. It's just you taking that step. It's not the thing way off in the future that's the destination, or the thing you have to earn or learn over 20 years. Or, you know, I often talk about it being no further away than your next breath. And that's something I think I learned in ayahuasca, was that the thing you're falling into of all that is truly is just there. You're falling into it. It's no further away than just your next breath. It's about bringing your mind to one place and recognizing that is something I quite literally mean, like, you could do in your next breath. It's not like, well, I have to wait to have the right clothing on, or I'm going to schedule it, or I'm going to take this medicine, or sure, you could do all those things. But it's also like you just drop everything and just breathe in and focus into your heart, or your one place in your mind, wherever you want to put your attention. And there it is. And I think what's cool about psychedelics is sometimes they can amplify in a tremendous way and show you that thing really clearly, like, oh my God, yes. Like, I needed that. So that when you're in your waking consciousness, you can connect in the same way and be like, oh, I know that subtlety. It's right there. Whereas before in my life, I just didn't know that was anything. I didn't connect. I had no reference point. So it just actually didn't mean anything. I'm like, that's nothing. So it's helpful to have these touchstone like helpers and teachers that can hold our hands and take us somewhere and say, check this out or feel this. And then you can do it on your own in ways where when you're doing the dishes and you see something, you feel something, like those micro moments, you recognize the fullness of what is. As Ram Dass would say, it's just this. Like, it's just this. That's all it is. That's all it ever has been, ever will be. There is nothing else. And that's a very like new agey and also very Zen idea, but it's just true. So when we can feel that ourselves and ground that in our own lifetime and consciousness, I think that's one of the greatest gifts, because we start to recognize a kind of quiescence and equanimity inside that will never be taken away. It's just something that we can cultivate our touchstone with it. And when you act from that place, when you live from that place, right, it's just even as a part of your consciousness, so that mindfulness, you're aware of it. I really think that's how the world changes, because then we're actually acting from a place of truth as opposed to a place of reactivity and all sorts of cognitive distortions.
Let's get into your language around being in a spiritual emergency, because it feels like we're right near that.
Well, I just feel that that's what's happening at its core. And that's my view, that everyone's reaction or the ways they're reacting at its core is from a spiritual derivation. And it's maybe because of a lack of connection. For instance, you could argue that everything we do is because we recognize we're going to die. And we know that. It's the great thing we can't escape. And so we react in different ways. Some people, it's spirituality, and they're like, I need to get closer to this thing to understand it because that's maybe what I'm headed towards. Some people, it's Monday Night Football. And some people, it's heroin. And some people, it's food. And some people, it's their job. And some people, it's other things. But it's very complex being a human being, and I think that's what makes it so rich and complicated. It's not simple. But it does feel like the polycrisis that we find ourselves in is spiritual in its nature, because if you do understand our true nature of being one coherent thing, of being interwoven and interconnected with all beings, if being inside a womb of love, then we very quickly wouldn't have as many problems with division or not understanding each other or being afraid of each other. And I'm not trying to oversimplify. I'm just trying to say like what's underneath it all.
Mm-hmm. No, it's well said, beautifully said. I really appreciate that weave. Yeah, I really love what you said there, East. It's an interesting dynamic, and I don't know if we have a space to talk about it today, but I'm also curious about, as you describe it, I say, yes, this is true. You know, what you say, this is true. We are all interwoven, and we are all negotiating the realities of being mortal and knowing it in our own way. All answers are valid. Yeah. Monday Night Football is valid, but we graduate,
like
to
everybody
come back
graduates.
to that. Yeah. And that process of graduating to the next kind of social way and process. And I love the beautiful description of the simple things and being with the immediacy. I love that. And I'm also curious about if you're seeing people's emphasis in the psychedelic zone too much on the moment and missing the immediacy and missing the simple things. Like I imagine in your position, you're seeing the trends that are there, and I wonder what you'd say about that.
I think what people could be missing is doing anything or recognizing that the messy stuff in our lives is actually the most important stuff. That's the grist for the mill. And so kind of running from the icky, gross stuff or the stuff they just don't like and they want to stay in the bliss state, or they don't want to look at structural problems and say like, well, that doesn't feel very spiritual, like, good government and things like that. And actually, that is the work, is being down in the weeds. So it can be also a trap of self-delusion, where self-aggrandizement and so forth. I think that's also the role of community in the group. You need to have others to be a reflection to you. You know, the old saying, if everyone around you is an asshole, might be you. Or if everyone else is the problem, like, oh, nobody gets it, you know. So
Yes.
you need others to keep you in line.
Fair enough. Well said. Well, it's been great to talk with you today. Thank you so much for joining the podcast.
Yeah, it's been fun, man. And thanks for having me on. Thanks for diving in.
See the dangers first. Always protect your feet. You always be ready for cold. Always be ready for heat. Always know where good water or source is. Rest whenever you can. See the dangers first. Always protect your feet. You always be ready for cold. Always be ready for heat. Always know where good water or source is. Always master the skills necessary. Always get the job done. Always know your place. Always disallow foolishness. Always rest whenever you can. That I live by. Like a little song that keeps me on track. 10 fingers, 10 laws that I live by. Always master the skills necessary, always get the job done, always know your place, always disallow foolishness, always rest whenever you can,